Just before the episode gets underway, I want to take the chance to ask you to support Reimagining Cyber by following or subscribing to the podcast. Also, if you can, why not leave us a rating and a review? It really helps other cybersecurity-minded folk find us. So follow, subscribe, rate and review. Now on with the show. Hello and welcome to Reimagining Cyber. And today we're counting down the nastiest malware of 2025 and what it means for your business. Now, if 2024 was the year that ransomware came roaring back, then 2025 was the year it learned your name. Attackers didn't just hack networks, they hacked people. With me to talk about this is our resident expert, Tyler Moffitt. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
And this episode drops on the 29th of October, and it actually relates to a webinar that you're doing tomorrow on the 30th of October. So go for it then. Tell me a bit more. What changed this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously AI, everything, now everybody's talking about AI, but it really has like supercharged, specifically social engineering. Okay. So like deepfake voices, cloned identities, AI written lures, you name it, it moved the attacks inside the perimeter. Breakout time, as far as like from one person falling for an attack to full, machine to network, privilege escalation, lateral movement, compromise the entire environment. They now measure that in seconds and minutes instead of hours and days. And once credentials are stolen, like really the everyday ticket becomes a skeleton key. So it really, I would say that's why 2025 feels like identity warfare.
Yeah, we used to talk about patching servers, blocking ports. The fight is now in the inbox and on the phone, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, people are much easier to, and faster to exploit in software. A voice call to the help desk, that one is so popular. It has been owning everybody right now, pretending to be an employee to get your password reset, where they just let you right in, right? The convincing, sign-on page, deep fake of a real executive asking for password reset. Attackers abuse legitimate tools and real identities. And the telemetry this year shows not just a spike in credential theft, but, one-time password interception, session hijacking. Once in, the threat actors look like employees.
So the defense has to shift as well.
Basically, I mean, you got to harden your identity, reduce standing privileges, watch for abnormal use of valid accounts, and you got to train the staff on this new type of tactic, right? I think that one was caught everybody off guard and wasn't probably in standard tabletop or procedures. The perimeter is now your people, your identity provider, and your SaaS admin panels.
Let's talk economics. Are ransoms really up again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Number go up for criminals, for sure. Payments basically crossed the $1 million mark in the end of the second half this year. Median payments also have doubled, right? And they're like it's almost as much as a house, which tells you the middle of the market is paying more, not just the whales, okay? Yet only about 1 in 4 victims pay. So that's one thing I think is good. Like way back when 2019, pre-COVID, like 85% of victims of ransomware were paying, and we're only at like a quarter. So, we're seeing less percentage of payout, but an increased amount of people that are paying. And also, there is data extortion only. We're seeing people that aren't even encrypting your files. They see the value and the juiciness is just in the data that they can leak or they've stolen, right? No encryption, just steal, threaten to leak. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's lower risk, all of that.
Let's now talk about the 6 nasties, if you like, the defined 2025. First up, Keylin. Why did they top your list?
Yeah, so Keylin ransomware, relentless and ruthless. Their scale was pretty large too. They also, they were really nasty. They went after healthcare, labs, local government. They did not care. Like some others we're going to talk about did care. But, they attacked all across the world, crippled diagnostics, delayed care for hundreds of thousands in healthcare. And when payment didn't come, they basically just leaked medical data. What's interesting enough to them, as far as revolutionary for this year or whatever you want to call it, they introduced a call lawyer button, literally for their affiliates, and like an advisor inside their panel, inside their infrastructure. So affiliates would literally click this call lawyer button, and then they got like negotiation coaching, where they got like a a professional sort of lawyer to help them look at the data they had, sort of case the joint, analyze how much it's worth, pay out math, even boilerplate or fake data deletion letters, and help guide them in trying to extort for as much as possible, right? Like a guided sales motion in your extortion business model.
Turning the pressure into a product, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. They're turning up the heat on that and getting better at it for sure. It really shows how professionalized ransomware has become, right? Playbooks, coaching, fast adoption of fresh exploits. They also coordinate with other advanced actors when it suits them.
Let's move on to Akira. They stayed near the top, but they changed tactics. What did they learn?
So yeah, they were on our list last year as well, but they were last year considered a healthcare menace, sort of like how Keelan took the #1 spot for this year. They learned that bringing in hospitals brings in the heat. All right. In 2025, they basically pivoted to high value enterprises in the MSP ecosystem where payouts are large and the outrage is essentially lower. Okay. They realized that when you go after, healthcare, the tail that you receive from law enforcement agencies and the general disdain from the public just isn't worth it, right? So they also went after Sonic Wall, SSL VPN exploitation was their mid-year driver. Initial access to domain control in under 2 days is really good, very common. They run it like a business. I mean, strict affiliate rules, professional negotiations, and they're one of the few that still offers like a discount for early payment.
Cold but effective, if you like.
Yeah, basically. They traded the chaos for consistency and the profits have followed. They've been doing very well all year. They haven't had like a big up and down. It's just been consistent.
Next up, number 3, Scattered Spider, the master manipulators, social engineering royalty. Where do they land in 2025?
Yeah, they were a big one. We've talked about them on previous podcasts as well. I mean, everybody's heard of Scattered Spider for sure. They were the one that proved the whole, phone call can beat your tech stack. SIM swaps, deepfake voice calls, help desk impersonation is where they are king. And they pioneered that. The whole I'm going to pretend to be an employee and call up the company help desk and, get my password reset and you've let me into the network. So, but the news that happened recently is that last month, not even a month ago, came the big arrests, right? And so what followed on Telegram looked like a performance art after some of them got arrested because they're all like teenagers. The average age was less than 19. And so, on this Telegram chat, after some of them got arrested, these kids essentially are like apologies, pledges to go straight. They even talked of going to rehab, crazy stuff that they were talking about how they would use their powers for good now and that they're sorry that they hit the government and how government data. It really just highlighted how unpolished these kids are and how young many operators are. The brand was hit, but the playbook lives on. Plenty of copycats doing a great job there.
The risk is the method, not the name, I guess.
Yeah, basically, the technique of convincing your staff is the blueprint that others will keep using. That help desk impersonation, that's not going anywhere, and that is #1 for companies right now that you need to be doing tabletop exercises and educating that attack vector because it's been crippling industries and embarrassing a lot of big companies right now.
Number 4 on the list, supply chain specialists. Play ransomware. Play didn't chase headlines, but they left a crater. Why is that?
So scale and leverage, they had almost 1,000 victims confirmed this year, and they like to target MSPs and IT service firms. Okay, so they like the pivot, the downstream, the supply chain of customers, essentially, right? They ride the downstream to the clients. So obviously, if you go after an MSP and you compromise an MSP, that may be X number of employees. Their customers are way more, potential victims, and so that's what they're going after, right? They also have their calling card, if you will, like a villain. They use intermittent encryption to speed deployment and dodge detection. They have custom binaries per victim to make signature detection basically useless. Also, Linux and ESXi encryptions, they hit the hypervisors, those virtual states where one host controls dozens of workloads and dozens of clients. That's extremely popular right now, and you got to watch out for it. So make sure your hypervisors are protected.
Yeah, a multiplier effect.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you compromise one server, but it has like 20 different customers on it that then have those customers all have like 50 different employees, I mean, it's like you said, the multiplier effect, right? One breach becomes a community event for SMBs that share that provider.
Moving on to number five, shiny hunters. They skipped encryption altogether. What makes them so nasty?
Yeah, they're very similar to Scattered Spider. They're probably the big players right now that are still around doing that, but patience and pressure, essentially. What's different from them though is they sit quietly in cloud and SaaS platforms. They steal full databases, so tons of data being theft, right? In the terabytes, okay? And then they time link around disclosure cycles for maximum damage and fines. So what I mean by that is they know the GDPR and CCPA data privacy governing laws and the times in which you're supposed to disclose being breached if you've known, right? They sort of like to hang around that. To give you an example, in 2025, they rolled out an auction style leak site with proof samples and countdowns. And even after arrests, which most of these gangs have, had law enforcement impact on their affiliates, but they keep going, right? They basically delayed detonation model keeps victims guessing and paying because they sort of choose not to even give you the option of paying the ransom for a long time to really get you sort of biting your nails going, should I disclose? Should I disclose? Because some people don't even want to disclose. They just want to pay the ransom and sweep it under the rug, right? That's what a lot of people who do pay the ransom are paying it for, not because they can't bounce back, not because they don't have good backups, because they don't want to disclose to the data privacy and governing regulators.
So the hostage is your brand and compliance exposure.
Yeah, basically, the data is the most, valuable hostage here, and they know it. They've hit really big, like influential and important, like brands for known just for being the brands, like luxury. They hit Keyring, which is they own like Gucci and Balenciaga and a whole bunch of other fashion brands, and they were essentially embarrassed by this because by the time it came out and their data was released on, the dark web, it had been months essentially. And Shiny, the company, Gucci and Balenciaga, hadn't disclosed at any point. And so then it looked really bad from a customer standpoint that you hadn't gotten ahead of this and said something like many other businesses will and have done and did a good job. And so this is where Shiny Hunters sort of shined in that regard.
Okay, let's go on to the last one, number six, and it's a bit out of left field, if you like. Luma Stealer. It's not ransomware, but it made the top six. Why is that?
So Luma and these in general, it's an info stealer, and they feed the entire ecosystem of ransomware. Okay, it steals credentials, cookies, authenticator tokens at scale, and then sells the access. Okay, so ransomware crews, they buy that access and skip right to the good part. Even after a major takedown, Luma was able to rebuild within days, right? It's not a campaign. It's a marketplace with affiliates and developers, and they do a really good job.
So a single infected workstation can fund a dozen attacks.
Yeah, basically. And Luma pairs perfectly with ClickFix, which is a style of lure that tricks users into pasting commands like PowerShell. And the human factor just beats out a lot of controls here.
Okay, any honorable mentions that you missed out? A few quick hitters before we wrap things up? What missed the list?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lockbit's been on the list for like 3-4 years in a row. And we've had many podcasts where we've talked about Lockbit because their drama has been up and down like crazy over the past 2 years. We've done at least probably, I think, 3 or 4 podcasts. But Lockbit is still alive. They are back, and they're called Lockbit 5.0 now. I think we even did a podcast specifically on that. They tried to come back for sure with faster encryption, better obfuscation, cross-platform builds. The brand is damaged, however. Like a lot of people from all the law enforcement back and forth and takedowns and re-takedowns, the brand is damaged, and so the impact is muted. You need affiliates. That's the affiliates of the game here. It's not as if any of these groups I've talked about are doing the attacks. They're not. These groups that I've talked about just build the infrastructure, and then they contract affiliates. And so the affiliates need to have trust in your brand, like it's a business model to use your software and infrastructure, right? But Lockbit is still trying. Their code is still dangerous. They're still around. They lack the brand necessary for a huge market share because affiliates have scattered to other ones out there, essentially. Next one would be Async Rat. They keep enabling intrusions for both beginners and pros. The open code, endless variants, right? It really, like, the info stealer epidemic made credentials the most traded commodity in cybercrime. And ClickFix, which we talked about previously, weaponized the copy and paste with fake captchas and error pages that trick users into running PowerShell commands that basically game over, if that makes sense.
And what's the trend line, would you say?
Yeah, so obviously AI. AI is coming in and basically throwing an exponent into all of this equation, plus identity, right? So faster lateral movement, hybrid extortion that mixes leaks, DDoS, harassment, the call lawyer button, shift to data theft over encryption, and a subscription economy for crime through malware as a service.
Okay, we are approaching Halloween. It seems to be very much a haunted landscape out there, if you like. What are the survival tips? Give us a short, realistic plan.
Yeah, it's good stuff to be aware of this at any time, but Halloween's a great time if to be scared of what's going on. We talk about cybersecurity. I would say the biggest one, always be under the cybersecurity posture of assuming compromise, right? Limit privileges, monitor inside network, patch or perish, right? Prioritize known exploited flaws in your VPNs, your RMM tools, hypervisors, email gateways. Protect identity first, okay? Phishing resistant multi-factor authentication, kill legacy authenticators, add user behavior analytics, do some tabletop exercises with the whole, call in employee help desk stuff, that's really, really important and big right now. Backups that work, right? Follow the 3211, test full restores, not just files. Hunt the info stealers. Watch your browser vault access and token theft. Train for human traps. So, like I said, tabletop exercises with the human. Simulate voice scams, right? Pretend to do that stuff. And the ClickFix style lures. Secure your tools, right? Lock down your RMMs. Screen share, software as a service admin panels, remote desktop, like lock all that stuff down for sure. And, practice the breach. The tabletop roles, comms, legal contacts, all that stuff. You don't want to be running around with your head cut off if it were to happen. Have some experience and sort of dry run under your belt so you have confidence and know what you can do in case it happens. Also, know your partners. Ask MSPs about segmentation and blast radius. And as always, stay current. Trust intel and advisories. Do your research. Listen to podcasts like this so you can be on top of it.
That is then the nastiest malware of 2025 and the playbook to survive it. Tyler, thank you so much. I trust that when it comes to trick-or-treating this year, you will be dressed as malware.
Actually, no. Wife has made me do, what is it, a Roman? I'm like, yeah, Roman Legion. But yeah, no, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to present this. And Nastiest Malware is one of my favorite. I love covering it. And those of you listening right now, I have a day before Halloween, I have a webinar going off, and you can learn all about these different malware. I can give a deep dive for you. I also have a big in-depth community, report written on it that you can learn about as well.
Yeah, we'll be putting links in the show notes. So do jump onto that webinar. And like Tyler said, you'll be getting an even more in-depth exploration. Thanks for listening to Reimagining Cyber. We'll be back next Wednesday. Remember to subscribe or follow the show. Goodbye.